22 pellet rifle versus 22 rifle. I thought this would be an interesting comparison to take, your standard high-powered 22 caliber pellet rifle and see how it compares to 22. And today what I'm using is actually 22 short. I got some 22 short, 29 grain copper-plated round nose. And to compare to that, my pellets are 14.4 grain copper washed round nose. So it's almost the same bullet or projectile, I guess you would say, diameter and nose profile. Now the difference is, of course, the 22 short is about twice as heavy as that 22 pellet. So even if we were to get the same velocity, we're looking at roughly twice the energy for the 22 short. So my rifle is here. This is the one I grew up with. I put a lot of rounds downrange with this rifle, and I just picked this up yesterday. It's a Stoeger S4000E. It's rated at 1,000 feet per second, but I believe that's with alloy pellets. Your standard pellets are a little bit closer to 800 feet per second. It actually has a suppressor here, so 22 short and 22 pellets can be kind of fun today because I don't have to really wear ear protection at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time, and then as always we're going to go through the juggernaut box, which contains a 1 3/4 inch pack of bologna that kind of simulates like a pectoral muscle, covered by 4 layers of denim, followed by a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard that kind of represents ribs or sternum. And in my handgun ballistic testing, typically each water jug equals about 3 inches of ballistics gel, and that bologna pack equals about 6. So if we can get out the back of jug 2, we're talking about 12 inches comparison to gel. Back of jug 3, 15 inches, and so forth. So that's really how that compares. And then also I have some pine boards. There's 3 3/4 inch pine boards, and it's always been the old Army standard. If you can puncture a pine board, that particular projectile is potentially lethal. I tried to look up this information so many times, and it's all over the place. Some people say it's a 1/2 inch pine, some people say 3/4 inch, some people say 1 inch soft pine. Either way, we have 3 3/4 inch soft pines, and I guess my money would be on if it goes through 1, that's potentially lethal. I think that basically represents a skull as far as the Army standard goes. So let's get started with the test and see how 22 short compares to a 22 pellet rifle. All right, for these shots, I'm going to be about 7 yards from the chronograph and target. So let's see what we get with this 29 grain short. $1,082. I could barely read that, but that's what it looks like it says. $1,085. Very consistent, very quiet, not wearing hearing protection, and not loud at all. $10.98. That's pretty good. $11.01. $10.92. Very consistent velocities. So we'll see how that 22 pellet rifle compares. All right, here's the pellet rifle. I've not sighted this in yet, so I have no idea where it's going to hit. We'll see what we get with these 14.4 grain pellets. That obviously didn't read. May have to go up or do something different to make this read appropriately. All right, I'm gonna put the lights on my chronograph and see if that helps with these pellets. Like my battery's dead, I'm going to switch this all out. All right, not perfectly ideal here, but I'm going to run it right over the top of the chronograph, see if I can get a reading. Keep going. I'm gonna have to get right up on it. Nope. $701, I finally got a reading. That might sound slow, but these are more than twice as heavy as your standard 177 caliber. So that's still pretty impressive. Plus, I don't know how this gas piston system works, if the air temperature affects it or not. I know it wouldn't with the spring, but I'm not sure with the gas piston. So I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to use all 150 pellets to get one chronograph reading, but 700 feet per second, which not too bad overall, honestly. So let's hit the ballistic box and just see how these two compare to each other. All right, first up I have the 22 short. It's kind of my opinion that if I can get through the fiberboard at all, it could potentially be lethal, because that fiberboard is a lot harder than what people think it is. I actually put it on my garage floor and tried to stab through it as hard as I could with the Phillips head screwdriver, and it couldn't even get halfway through it. So it's really, really tough stuff. That's why I use it to represent ribs or sternum. So let's see what the 22 short does here. Not used to hearing that smack of that water jugs without hearing protection. That sounded cool. So let's see what we got. All right, our baloney pack is here and we're definitely leaking, so that's a good sign. And as to be expected, we just kind of punched a hole right through this whole thing here. Nothing that would indicate expansion or anything like that. That's, you know, what you would expect. So let's see what we got in water jugs. All right, first jug right through it. Impact on 2. There's a dent in 3, just barely. And a dent out the back of 2. That's going to indicate roughly 12 inches comparison to the ballistics gel, and we have the bullet. This is surprising. We got a large amount of mushrooming. I wouldn't have expected that from a round nose bullet, but we can see here that round nose from a rifle isn't bad, even on a short. A lot bigger than starting diameter. Now let's try that pellet rifle and see how that compares. All right, 22 pellet rifle. We have to remember that the slingshot test I did, the slingshot ball bounced off the baloney pack, and when I used the pistol crossbow, which had about 5 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, we couldn't get through that fiberboard. So let's see how a pellet rifle does. All right, we actually stopped this in the fiberboard. I was expecting to get through that. I'm gonna shoot it one more time just to rule out that that was a fluke and see how it does. All right, shot 2. I'll try to make the shot a little bit higher. Same result, so let's take this apart. So what happened is both of these pellets hit the fiberboard and just left a little bit of a dent on it. Now it did pull denim through, and it went through the entire baloney pack, so that's really, really impressive. So what this is going to basically indicate is that a body shot with a pellet rifle of that nature probably isn't going to be lethal to a body shot unless it went between a rib, which is unlikely to happen. That's why I brought out the old Army test, because that might shed a little bit of light of what might happen in a headshot with either of these. So let's try that. All right, 22 short. We have 2 1/4 inches worth of pine here, so we'll see what the 22 short does. Wow, we're leaking water. So I probably don't need to make another shot on that. So this is without a doubt absolutely potentially lethal from a body shot or a headshot. We clearly see that. Bullets in this first jug. All right, this bullet looks near identical to what it looked like in the water jug testing. Just a little bit of mushroom in there. That's really interesting. Let's see how that pellet rifle does. All right, 22 pellet rifle against pine boards. Definitely went into the board, and I'm going to hit it again. A little bit higher. All right, let's see what we got. Definitely no pass through of the pine boards. Now with our short, we went all the way through it, obviously, and our pellets actually stopped in the first one here. So I think part of that has to do with the fact that they're stacked. I think we get a little bit different result if we just use one. So I'm going to put one up and see if that pellet will go through. All right, one board in place. Let's see what this does. As I suspected. All right, our pellet went right through. I don't see any marks out the back. And with our pellet, we have just a little tiny bit of squishing down of that pellet. The skirt's kind of a little bit shorter. No real deformation of that pellet. So what we can definitely see here is that a pellet gun is can be lethal, but your average run-of-the-mill one's questionable whether it can be or not. I expected a little bit better results. And there's one more test I want to do. I just want to shoot from a distance and just see how accurate these guns can be. All right, I'm roughly 75 yards from my metal tank there. This is as far as I can go and still see the target. I'm also shooting through some foliage here. Just a little bit, so it might be kind of hard to hit. So I have to make a lot more precise shot than just on the whole tank itself. So let's see what we get with the 22 short. Sounds like I got it. That one definitely hit low because I heard it hit the sheet metal underneath that tank. Shot sounded like something's wrong with it. Alright, let's try the pellet rifle and see how that compares. Alright, this might not be possible. It's my experience that with pellets, you kind of got to aim high. And it might be kind of hard to do with the foliage that's in my way. Put the metal under it, so yeah, I aim kind of on the top of that tank and it hit low. I'm going to try that again. Yeah, same thing. So what I'm going to have to do is aim above that tank incrementally until I get where it needs to be. Did about a foot high. Not sure where I hit. This is one of the most difficult things because you got to have both eyes open to get a blurry image of one, to kind of aim over it and still keep an eye on your target. So I took my glasses off. Yeah, I'm hitting the foliage. All right. There we go. So basically I aimed touching the top of the tank. Like the very, very top, like right here. So I'll try that again. So it definitely has the ability to get a little bit of range. So it does pretty well. It does seem to have about, a 10-inch drop or so at 75 yards, but it's doable. And at that distance, obviously, wouldn't do a whole lot of damage to stop a threat. Probably do a lot of damage to a squirrel. But overall, that's what you get between 22 short and 22 pellet rifle. Now, admittedly, this is probably the worst pellet to try to do this test, but I wanted to start this test with your basic pellet. Your basic 14 grain 22 pellet. That's basically your run-of-the-mill pellet. Now when we get into alloy pellets, when they weigh like 8, 9, 10 grains, will significantly increase the velocity, and that'll actually increase your muzzle energy even though the bullet's lighter. It's kind of, it's kind of like taking a 357 Magnum, a 125 grain, and it's more powerful than a 180 grain, but it's the same cartridge. Well, you do the numbers right, you get the bullet weight right, with essentially the same amount of power you're working with, pressure in the cartridge, you get more power. I mean, kind of do that in a similar way with a pellet rifle if we do it right. So that's what you get with your basic 14 grain pellet. But what we do see today is 22 short out of a rifle is pretty impressive. In fact, even though it's 29 grain and not 40 grain, I would say your energy out of a rifle is roughly what a 22 long rifle is out of a handgun. I mean, like a handgun with a longer barrel even. So 22 short is no wimpy cartridge, really. When we look at it in a rifle, it's not too bad, honestly. Very lethal without a doubt. So it just shows you how just the tiniest amount of smokeless powder is still an impressive technology even in the 21st century compared to what else you have to work with. Because to get to that energy level of that 22 short, we'd have to have this big tanked rifle that's all set up for a huge amount of air pressure. So but that's what you get today. Fun little test. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.